for the month of September 2022, again, for the last 20 years, it was the lowest number of sales that we've had in September. So we were talking about 2020. We had 11,000 sales in the 1 month of 2020. Like, obviously the market was crazy. And we think about last year, we had 9,000, right? So we're running at 45 to 50% of what we usually see. We're running at half of what we typically, or what we have run at for the last 2 or 3 years. I wanted to go into like a little story here for you on who this market makes sense for, where the deals are at, and then like who it also doesn't make sense for. This is kind of like the story of how you get your dream home in Toronto, right? If you are somebody who believes in the long-term market in wherever you're looking to buy, invest, etc., and you're willing to hold that property for the next 5 to 10 years, and you can stomach the payments or the rents will take care of it, etc., etc., I think there's opportunities for you in today's market.
Emma just dropped facts for investors, families, realtors. This was not just for investors, this was for everyone. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Channel. I'm Kayla Smith, Realtor and Team Lead with Smith & Co Realty and Investor in Niagara. But enough about me. We have absolute superstar Emma Pace, Realtor Team Lead from Monstera Real Estate, and gonna give us all the details for Toronto. Emma, what's up? How's it going?
Good to see you, Kayla. It's been a little while. I'm happy to have you as the host because I hope
Me too, actually. How are things going? How's Toronto looking?
Good. I mean, it's a funky market, as you know. I think we were expecting that things would pick up a little bit more in the fall market. So obviously we're recording early October, and today we're going to go through the September numbers. So not a traditional fall market. Like we usually see a little bit of a lull in this summer, which I'm sure is kind of the same thing with you when we look at kind of real estate cycles. We usually see a slowdown in the summer and then things pick back up in the fall. We haven't necessarily seen quite the pickup. Like the numbers I'm going to show you look better. Like if anybody's been watching this for the last little while, you'll see the numbers this month. Like, oh my gosh, like this looks so good. Yeah. But we do have to preface it with like 1 month could be an outlier. We don't have enough data to, we don't have enough positive data to say the market's rebounding, but we did have a more positive month in September. However, not a lot of sales. Like it was actually a 20-year low for sales in September. So pretty light on the total number of transactions. And again, I think I'm going to go through something a little different with you guys today that isn't market data. And I think it'll explain kind of like my thought process behind where everything is at.
Awesome. Let's jump in.
Cool. I will pop these slides up here. So just before we get started, if there's anybody that's watching this video, there's kind of two things that our network has been finding value in. And so I'm going to link access to both of these things below in the description. So one is our most affordable properties list. So what we do is we kind of have like this revolving list of what are the most affordable condos and then what are the most affordable freehold properties. And so even if you're not really in a position where you want to make a move, but you want to keep tabs on like what the lowest level or the baseline is, a lot of people have been finding value in that to see like, has that been increasing? Is that something that's coming down on a regular basis? So if you want access to that list, the link will be below. And then the second thing is if you're an investor, we do a weekly, we basically choose our favorite property of the week of all of the properties that we've analyzed. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about kind of like rental rates and what's going on in the condo market. But if you're an investor and you just kind of want to get pre-qualified deals in your inbox, we send one out every single Friday. That's our favorite one of the week. And again, even if you're not ready to go, you can still kind of just open that up and kind of keep tabs on that week over week to see like, are the numbers getting better? Are they getting worse? What are the locations that we're finding are the best performing locations for investors at any given time?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea. Even for people that are just like curious about what the Toronto market looks like, definitely shoot the team a message to get access to these.
It's just like, honestly, at the end of the day, it's like can we save you time, right? Like
Yeah.
we're so busy in today's day and age. It's like the last thing you need to do is try and like learn all the things that we do every single day and try and replicate it. Like just get on the list and then just look at those things. Like there's this saying that I learned my first year in real estate, and that is like good artists copy, great artists steal. And it's like, just look at what we're looking at, right? Like we're doing this work for way more than 40 hours a week when you combine the team together.
Yeah.
Back off our efforts. Like it'll make things easier for you.
Awesome.
So yeah, the link will be in the description below. So let's get into the numbers. So it's been a while since we've seen green on these charts. As you can see here, this is basically February. We've been on a pretty deep slope downwards from a pricing perspective. So if we actually look month over month, condos in Toronto went up about 4%. Towns went up about 1%. So we basically went from like 818 to 830. So if you're looking for a condo, you're probably looking in the high sevens. If you're looking for a condo town, you're looking in like low to mid eights. And then if you're looking for a semi, they made the biggest move to the upside. But again, this is based on the fact that there isn't a lot of volume happening, right? Like year low for total number of sales, I don't think paints an accurate picture for what prices truly are. Because if we, taking into consideration like where we performed for sales activity in comparison to like, let's say 2020, because I think that was the peak. We'll look at the numbers. It was the peak for total number of sales. Well, like if you have twice as much data, then this number becomes more accurate than if you have 50% of the data, right? So I think this number is probably skewed. And again, we don't have a ton of volume for semis. So don't get like, if you own a semi or you're thinking about buying a semi, like don't panic or be too excited because this number is probably going to fluctuate a little bit. And then detached went down about 4%. So if you're looking for a semi, you're probably looking between 115 and 12. And then if you're looking for a detached property in Toronto, you're probably looking between like 15 and 16. So yeah, that's where we're at. And if we look at the GTA as a whole, things are pretty flat. Like we've seen these, to be honest, if you actually go back and look at any of the market updates that we've done from like maybe March to July, you would see that these guys had a pretty big slope downwards, like even more so on a percentage basis than any of the individual segments of the Toronto market. So Durham pretty flat, like we went from 920 to 915. Again, Peel, we're down like 1.75%. Halton's up by 2, Toronto's up by almost 3, and York's down like 1.5%. So not a ton of movement like one way or the other, right? We're kind of staying in this channel. And like I highlighted this because you can see like the graphs are relatively flat. Yeah. This is going to be kind of like the theme of this this chat this month is if we actually look at the graphs, and it's like maybe not the most sexy or exciting, but it's like if you look at any graph that we're going to look at today, we're starting to see this like flattening out, right? So, over the last couple months, it's been like doom and gloom. Yeah. Things are going down. And now we're starting to see a bit of a consolidation. Now, again, similar to what I said at the beginning of the video, there's so many other variables that come into effect when it comes to the real estate market that one interest rate drop could see this thing peak back up. Or continued rate hikes might be a flattening, and then it could drop further. So we are seeing a bit of a consolidation right now, but I think right now it's really, really, really important that you pay attention to like what the heck is going on in your particular neighborhood. Like you should be doing like a micro market analysis to see what's going on and what's going to happen kind of in the future. But right now, the price declines. They're still happening in some areas, but probably not as drastically as what we had seen earlier when the interest rate hikes were like more aggressive.
Awesome. I am we're seeing that the detached kind of took a bit of a decline. I know it was a bit of a smaller, sample size, whereas the others increased. Do you think that has something to do with people being pushed out of the original affordability of the detached at all? Yeah.
I mean, purchasing a property at 1.6 at 5% interest versus 2% interest. Yeah. Like the payment differential is so drastic that people are just, I'm not doing that anymore, right? Yeah. And so then what it comes down to is individuals' motivations of being like, okay, do I want to, like, am I committed to the detached thing, right? Like everybody that calls us as agents are like, I want a detached property.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, there's never anybody that's like, I can't wait to like buy a condo. It's like,
Yeah.
I want detached, but like, how do I do it? And then we build this whole path up for people to be able to get there. But I think what it comes down to is if you're so adamant on buying the detached property, it's like you kind of have to choose the lesser of two evils at this point in time. Like, that's probably not going to be an option for you right now. Are you going to just go and rent and wait to see if that thing continues to pull back and gets into a ability range that you're okay with? Or are you going to buy the semi, or are you going to buy the condo townhouse so that you can still participate in the market and buy a property while it's pretty well off the peak? I mean, here's the peak where we're buying. Like, we do know for sure that if you buy a property today, you are not buying at the peak.
Right.
Right. So you kind of have to make that your own individual choice if you're a buyer in today's market. And when I say buyer, it's like you could also be a seller at the same time, but you're still buying something else. So I'd still call you a buyer.
Yep.
You kind of have to figure out like what does the affordability look like, and your affordability is going to be a lot less than what it was even 4 or 5 months ago. And does the overall affordability change? Like, does the overall change deter you from wanting to own a home, or are you willing to sacrifice and take maybe not the ideal home that you thought you could get to participate in the market and buy off the peak?
Got it. Makes sense.
So then if we look at GTA, so if we look like peak prices to current prices that actually put this in like a percentage basis, we're looking at Durham is about 25% from the top, Peel's about 20% from the top, Halton's about 19, and then Toronto is about 12. And again, we're kind of hovering with these guys like, you know, Durham between 24 and 26. And we've seen that for the last couple of months. And it's interesting because if you actually rewind back to a couple of months ago, we were doing like 1,000 to 1,200 calls a week with the team. And everybody was saying, if prices drop 20%, that's when I'm interested in having and being back in the market. And then I think it's super interesting to look at these, and 2 of these are right at 20 and haven't moved for like 3 months. So maybe what people were saying a couple months ago is proving to be true. But we're going to look at why I think that happens to be the case in a second. And then Toronto peak to current prices. You know, condos have performed the best. And when I say the best, it's like the best of the worst. Right? So they've come down about 6%, but again, I think it's just like an affordability thing, right? It's the easiest. You have the biggest buyer pool. It's the least it's the most affordable to get into from a purchase price perspective, from a carrying cost perspective, all of that kind of stuff. And then condo towns are down about 14%. Semis again testing the threshold at 20, and then detached again slightly over 20. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how things pan out, but like the number 20% from the peak was always the number that people happen to be saying to us on the phone. And so before I get into like the important metrics, I want to go through this. So this is a little bit of a different thing than what I usually go through.
I like it.
This is kind of like how I see human beings react to change. And I kind of thought about this like when COVID first hit, and I think it's kind of the same thing. I think it's kind of the same thing in the real estate market, right? So it's kind of like we have 3 phases of what happens when like change happens in our lives. So we have like fear, panic, or inaction, where it's like, I'm not doing anything. This is way too overwhelming, like 0% chance. And when we had all of those rate increases that were happening so drastically and quickly, then we started to see this inventory pile up and demand went away because people were fearful and they were like, I'm not doing anything. Like, I need to have some stability in my life before I feel comfortable making this move, right? And so we still have a portion of the population that's in this fear, panic, inaction, right? A lot of people have moved to this phase 2 of like, I'm just accepting what this is. So it's like the same thing with COVID, like, don't go outside because you know, people were wearing like whatever costumes and stuff in the grocery store.
Sanitize your groceries.
Yeah, this is like that costumes in the grocery store phase, right? And that was, I think, what we had in the real estate market in April, May kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Now we're not wearing the costumes in the grocery store anymore, and people have realized that rates are going to be, they are higher, and they are going to be higher than what they were when we were, you know, during COVID, and we needed to encourage the economy, we'll say, right? And so we have a lot of people who are like, I understand and I can accept what's happening now. And I think most people are here, right? That doesn't mean that they're making a decision or not. It just means that where they are mentally. And then you have people who are optimistic about the new opportunities that are being presented. So these are the people that are like, okay, I am buying off the peak. I'm going to get in early. You know, I'm still somewhat fearful, but I'm more excited about what's happening. And so I'm not saying that anybody that's in any phase is right or wrong. I'm just saying you got to know who you are and where you're at in these 3 phases. There's no right or wrong way to say, like, who's correct in this. Like, if you're still fearful, totally makes sense.
Yeah.
If you have accepted the fact that rates are what they are, they just are what they are. So we have to come to that acceptance phase at some point in time. Doesn't mean that you have to move or don't have to move. And then there's some people who are like, yeah, this is my opportunity. I was going to buy something at 1.8 that was a detached, and now that detached I can get for 1.5 or 1.6. That's a good enough deal. I feel optimistic about it. What I wanted to mention about what I was talking about earlier is that one catalyst of a rate drop or a rate hike or one of these external variables, if people are here, can move you back here or can move you up here quickly. So my advice is you don't have to make a quick decision, but you need to be prepared, because we don't control what happens in the marketplace. There's a lot of other variables and factors. Like, our job is, you tell us when you're ready to go, and then we facilitate that. We're not going to convince you to buy a house. You got to be convinced yourself to buy a house, and then we just help to facilitate the journey with the best possible processes that we have in place, right? So what I would say is, if you're watching this video and you are in phase 2, then make sure that you have all your ducks in a row. Like, have your letter of employment, understand what your affordability is, understand if rates go up, what happens to your affordability at that point in time, so you can make an educated decision moving forward. And then if rates go up and you're like, went up too far, not comfortable with the payments, and you go back into this mode, you haven't lost anything. You've lost a little bit of time for sure. But if rates go down in the future and you have all your ducks in a row and then everybody else is chasing their tail to get their stuff together, you're first in line about this. And you're an earlier adopter of the new opportunity than other people.
Yeah, I know, even just with the talk that it's going to slow, and again, who knows what's going to happen with the rate hikes. This is just what the news is kind of saying. But I'm finding some of my clients coming out of the woodworks with that stuff. Like, okay, I'm going to get my pre-approval just in case things don't go up, 100 basis points. They go up, maybe 50 this time. And that's gaining consumer confidence that we are on the right trajectory. I've also seen the other side of it, where people are getting back into this fear, panic, and action, because they're thinking, okay, we're still going up. How is this still happening?
Yeah, and we have, like, our neighbors down south that have a lot of stuff going on, and our economy is often affected by what happens down there. So I know from being in a coaching program with a lot of agents in the States that they haven't seen the 25% drop off the peak in many of the areas as of yet. So will they likely see that? I believe that they will. I think it's trailing, but that lack of confidence there will also spill over into Canada, our economy. So the ultimate moral of the story is, like, you got to figure out, what phase are you in? Are you in 1, 2, or 3? If you're in 1, don't do anything. Just chill. It's all good. No big deal. If you're in 2, get your ducks in a row so that when 3 comes about, you're an early adopter. And if 3 doesn't come about and you got to go back to 1, then you go back to 1. It is what it is. Yeah.
No love lost.
So I think this is like an easy way for people to say, like, okay, like, maybe I'm kind of feeling this way. I'm in between 1 or 2, or maybe I'm between 2 or 3, and these are the steps that I need to make sure that I feel comfortable being in phase 3. Cool?
I like it.
So again, to kind of go back to what I mentioned earlier, we're going to look at every single graph here. So this is the numbers that we had looked at was like Toronto proper. This is taking into consideration all of the GTA. So this is kind of like average price composite across all sectors of the market and all locations in the GTA. So you can see we have this drastic drop, and then we have consolidation. Then if we look, this is kind of like an inverted chart, because this is inventory that's on the market. So we start to see inventory pile up, right? And normally when we see prices come down, it's because this is starting to pile up, right? And then what we see is this was the end of, what was this? This was summer. So normally, like I said, summer's a bit slower. So we started to see inventory get taken off the market. A bunch of sellers had been sitting on the market for a while. Their listings didn't sell, so they took them off or they came up for expiration. And now we see a consolidation, right? In terms of months of inventory, so technically by number standards, we are on the cusp of, like, we're in a balanced market. We're kind of like on the edge of a seller's market, a balanced market. But what I would say is, again, this is taking into consideration everything in Toronto. You should do the numbers in your own specific neighborhood. Like actually do the numbers to say, like, is my neighborhood a seller's market? Is my neighborhood a buyer's market? You can't take the numbers from an entire, for Toronto, the biggest city in the entire country, and a brush for your small neighborhood. So make sure you're doing research for your own particular neighborhood that you're looking to buy in, because it could be drastically different. And then sales to new listings, we'll talk about this in a second. So let's go here. Again, months of inventory since June 28th. Flattened off, right? It's like we're within this channel of 3-ish months. And if you look here, 3 months is right on the cusp. This is 2.5 months, but basically between 2.5 and 3 months is where you're like hovering between a balanced market and a seller's market. And depending on if you're in the condo market or you're freehold, you're kind of like towing that line, and you've been on that line for a while, right? So when the number is this low, it's a drastic seller's market. That means that there's only 1 month of inventory. So if there were no other houses that hit the market, everything would be gone in a month. Right now, we have somewhere between, we'll say, high 2s to almost 4, depending on the month or week. So there's a little bit more inventory kicking around, but a lot of it is stale, older stuff. Like the goods are still selling, you guys. Like if you are in a AAA neighborhood with a top tier school district, or you're back onto a ravine, or you got a pool, like if you have a sexy feature in your house, it's probably going to be the first one to sell. Cool. This I also thought was interesting. So our new construction sales plummeted, and basically they're at the lowest level since 2016, right? And so of course, with interest rates increasing, it makes it more challenging for builders to create housing stock, because the numbers are already not like the profit margins are also not massive for these builders. So once you add on increased borrowing costs, they become even less sexy, and they're like, we're just not going to do this, right? Yeah. So the thing that was interesting here is, like, if this is sustained, then we have an issue in the future. Yes. So we have to take into consideration, yes, the market is slow. There's this whole question about like a bubble bursting and blah, blah, blah. Fair. And what is happening in 5 years, 10 years? What are the implications of what's happening right now on the real estate market in 5 to 10 years? Yeah. So if you're a short-term player, then I don't think this market makes sense for you, because I still think there's too much volatility. Like you could buy something today and it could go down in price. Yeah. But if you have a 20-year outlook and this is your dream house, and you think about all of the implications of today's market and what that's going to do to the future market, and you believe in it, then you're buying off the peak. And if the peak was here, you're buying here. Even if you come back here and you believe that the market's going back over the peak, and you live in a house that you love and that you can afford, to me, it makes no difference at all.
This is such a drastic difference. Like, it's interesting to see, because I mean, we work with investors obviously, and everyone was, going wild in 2020 and 2021. It's interesting to see that the builders have kind of followed the exact same trajectory that, all the smaller investors, and we've found the same thing. Like we do some pre-con, and same type of deal. Projects have been pulled back, delayed, all that good stuff. And for all of the reasons that you're saying, like, it's just such a heavy cost to carry right now for builders. Yeah. So I can see just sitting on the land and waiting till things maybe get a little bit easier, better for them to do what they're looking to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, this isn't here to like scare anybody. This is to say, like, you shouldn't buy real estate for the short term, but if you believe in it long term, then there are indicators that I believe lead to us having similar issues to what we had before. Yes. Again, kind of kicking the can down the road. This is what I wanted to show you for sales to new listings. So for the month of September 2022, again, for the last 20 years, it was the lowest number of sales that we've had in September. So we were talking about 2020. We had 11,000 sales in the 1 month of 2020. Like obviously the market was crazy, and we think about last year we had 9,000, right? So we're running at 45 to 50% of what we usually see. And so like if you are in the market right now, like, or you've been kind of casually browsing, it's taking people a longer time. You're like, why is this taking so long? It's taking really long because you only have 50% of the houses that are hitting the market.
Yeah.
Look here, for new listings, you have significantly fewer homes hitting the market. So if you're like, I need more, you either have to expand your location, your price point, or the criteria for your home. But if you have that dialed in, then the only other variable that you have to help you is time, because you're just not seeing as much stuff hit the market right now. So don't think you're doing anything wrong. It's just like, look at the numbers. We're running at half of what we typically, or what we have run at for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
right?
the new listings too is kind of surprising. With 2012, like things just went wild, but their sales were actually not all that much higher than what they are right now, right? So it's just interesting to look at historic data, because I think, again, headlines and all that stuff could say like the most inventory ever and the least sales ever, like not those exact words, but if you look at it, that's actually not the case.
Yeah, they don't, I think like if you look at one of these data points in isolation, like you can tell whatever story you want, but if you look at it, tells you a much more accurate story. And so like the ultimate thing that we want to say here is like, we've had a low number of sales. We also had a really low number of new listings. So like if you have a ton of sales and you don't have a ton of new listings hit the market's probably skyrocketing like this because you have a ton of demand, things are happening, people want to buy stuff, but you just don't have enough inventory hitting the market. Where like here, we have a really low number of total sales transactions for volume, and we don't have a ton. So it's like there's just not a whole heck of a lot going on. Like it sucks to say. I would love if things were busier, but they're just not. And that's just the sad reality of what happens when there's other variables that affect the market. So don't feel like you're doing anything wrong. Just know the data and like make your decisions based on the data. So if we're looking at buying a condo, we've got 3 main areas. So central, west, and east. The bulk of the inventory is comprised here, which is CO1 and CO8. So that's kind of like the downtown core. So you'll notice we had 875 condo sales, which is really low for September because we actually had 1,028 in August. And that was still pretty low, but we're down 15% in terms of sales volume from August. So we had 167 total sales that happened in the West End, and the average price there is $670 or so. Central, we had 585 sales, so we were down about 20% for total sales volume, and the average price is $827. We're up from $782 in the previous month. And then East, we had 123 sales, and the average price is $626 with instead of $595. So they've gone up about 5% last month as well. And then let's talk about the rental market, because the investors are going to want to talk about this. Yes. So when I started doing this, I'm actually curious to go back to my very first market update that I did. I think we were in and around 2,200 for this. And I pull the exact same sample size every single month. I try to keep it around under 100. But right now we're seeing anywhere from like $50 to $100 a month is what rental prices are increasing by in this small segment of the market.
That is wild. Just the fact that that's August and September. Like it's 1 month and it's $100. I mean, just shy of, like that's wild.
And this is every month. Like literally go back and watch any of the months. It's $50 to $100 every single month, right? So if we're looking at getting a 1-bedroom plus den in the waterfront community that has a balcony and it has parking, it's over 500 square feet, it's $2,900.
My gosh.
Right? But I think good news for renters.
Okay.
Renters, I don't even want to say it's like that. It's not that exciting, but it was the first time since June 2021 where we've actually seen prices dip a little bit. Now it's not. Okay. I think people are saying like, I'm not paying any more money for rent, right?
Well, yeah, that like this graph is actually. This was one of the things I was going to ask you. I'm glad that you did this because, and we follow realtors on Instagram and stuff, and I keep seeing like these offer presentations for rentals and stuff. And I'm like, this just seems wild to me. Like some of our rentals sit a bit longer out here, but the prices are not anywhere near that. So
No,
but it is nice to see, I guess, a bit of a downturn, tiny bit.
I mean, I think like, look, it's the same thing as sales. Like good rental properties are going to go for a crazy price. To give you guys a quick story, like one of the agents on my team submitted an offer, it's either last week or the week before, for a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, like standard, like 850 square foot condo in Liberty Village. They offered 3,600 and they got outbid. I think there was like 4 people that offered 3,600 and the thing rented for $4,000. Right?
Oh my gosh.
So, again, these are not typical, but I'm saying that there are these outliers that are going for most ridiculous prices. But to go back to market demand, right? And kind of what got us here to these prices in the market. And like there was a lot of, we could say, speculative buying in the pre-construction space. There was a lot of like investor confidence and consumer confidence when rates were low, and there was the FOMO, and same thing with the rentals. Like everybody wants this place, I need to get it. There's something, right? So I think when it comes to these rates, and again, we do the investment analysis every week, and selfishly, I do it because I want to know what's going on in the market. Because to be very honest with you guys, like the rate differential of running the numbers at like 4.7 versus 5.3, which is probably what we're looking at right now, at 4.7, we would have investors lining up out the door to buy these properties because you're basically break even for condos off MLS at that interest rate, right? With the current rents. At 5.3, it gets a little bit less sexy, but this is what I'm saying about going through those phases. Like one move up or one move down could be the difference of consumer confidence skyrocketing or plummeting again. And I think, there's tons of there's tons of data out there that leads us to believe that rates will continue to go up. But as an investor, you got to keep a very close eye to this, because if rental rates continue to increase and you see the opportunity, or like let's say variable rates are going up and fixed rates are coming down, and you can lock in a 5-year fixed at 4.7 with these current rates and taking into consideration property taxes and maintenance fees, there are some opportunities out there. Like genuinely there are. It's just, it becomes more challenging, of course, with more expensive rates. But like even at, we placed probably the best deal I've ever placed for a client last month. We ran the numbers at 5.3%, and we placed them with one of our contacts, and she was able to get him. We bought the place for $880 and $7,800 a month in rents. So at 5.3% interest, that he's bought a condo, like in an amazing building, and he cash flows $500 a month.
I mean, those are, especially condos, like, the hands-off investment that people love. That's insane. That's amazing.
Yes, might be. I'm not gonna lie. I asked Victoria. I was like, if he doesn't want to take this deal, can we buy it? She was like, I don't think we need another one right now. But yeah, like, look, there's opportunities out there, guys. Like, you just have to know where to look. And so I wanted to go into like a little story here for you on who this market makes sense for, where the deals are at, and then like who it also doesn't make sense for, because there's probably a lot of you guys too. So I'll tell you guys a story about my clients. I'm going to call them R and T because I don't want to give their names away, but I love these guys. I've worked with them for many, many years. So this is kind of like the story of how you get your dream home in Toronto, right? So they called me 2017, they called me. And they were like, hey, we have a little bit of cash. We should probably get into the market. It was just the two of them at the time. They had kind of like, standard incomes and like a decent down payment, but nothing crazy. So they were like, we'll buy the condo. Fast forward a couple of years, like millennials do, they adopted, I think, 2 cats and a dog. And they decided that they wanted to get like their starter house. So we ended up getting them their starter house. And I'm going to go through the math with you guys in a second. And then they just recently had a baby boy. So they call me and they're like, hey, this house is already starting to feel small again. We want to be able to move into our dream house. So the moral of this story, before we get into the numbers, is you don't go to this in Toronto. And to be honest, you don't go to this in most markets now, given what's happened in the marketplace. You buy good properties, you move to the next one, you build equity, and then you get your dream house. And if you do this, it's not guessing like, how am I ever going to get this? You have to make sacrifices along the way to get this, but if you follow the path and you buy good properties along the way, you will get this. It will happen. Okay, so let's look at the math. 2017, they call me. We bought the condo for $450. Okay, 2019, they call me again. They want to buy this. We sell the condo for $650. So they make $200K between 2017 and 2019. Okay, so they move in 2019. The cool part about this first property was it actually had a second unit, so their payments didn't change at all, but they got the backyard for the pets. So we bought it for $750. They call me in 2022, even when the market is down, right? We end up getting them 1.19 in one day. This happened last month, by the way. This happened in September, which is why this story is so fresh in my mind. We end up selling it at 1.19. So they made $440 from 2019 to 2022. And of course, you're going to say, okay, well, they participated in one of the hottest markets. Yes, they did. But this is where things get interesting for people who are looking today. We staged their house. We did everything we possibly could. We found the right buyer at the right time, and we got them top dollar. We also found their dream house with a motivated seller, because there's people, like I was saying, there's people kind of all over the place with motivation. They got their dream house in a better location with another bedroom, everything they wanted, and we paid $50,000 more. $50,000. That's it, right? So for them, yes, they are still going through the same things. Increased interest rates, volatility in the market, whatever. But this house, they're staying in for 15 years because they got kids and they're hoping to have another one. And so the moral of the story here is, if your market is performing well and you can get top dollar for your house and you're moving to another market that is going to provide you a significantly better house and you want to move there for the long term, it could be within $50,000 right now, as long as you believe in that market and you want to stay there long term. Okay, but this is like the story of how to get your dream house, and secondly, the opportunities in today's market if you can find a motivated seller, and if you do everything, if you have a really strong property and you do everything to market it well, inventory is low, this is the type of situation that you could do too if you want to, if you're in that phase 2 or 3 like we talked about earlier. Okay, so to wrap it up, if you don't have a long-term outlook for real estate, don't buy real estate right now, right? If you're a speculative player and you want to buy something and sell next year, if you told me that, I probably wouldn't even sell you a house right now, because I wouldn't want to be part of that story. But if you are somebody who believes in the long-term market, in wherever you're looking to buy, invest, etc., and you're willing to hold that property for the next 5 to 10 years, and you can stomach the payments or the rents will take care of it, etc., I think there's opportunities for you in today's market. And then again, you got to test sellers' motivation. We send out a motivated sellers list to our email list every 2 weeks, and those are basically the sellers that are like, hey, yo, I need to sell this thing.
Get me out of this.
Yeah, bring me an offer.
Yeah.
But not all sellers are raising their hands, right? That's an easy way to find sellers.
Yeah.
Having a good line of communication with the listing agent is critical in finding sellers' motivations. There's a lot of people on the market right now that are listed at a certain price that have already baked in a nice chunk of price reduction in there. So you got to test the seller's motivation. Don't just think because someone's listed at X price, that's the price you have to pay. Go and have a conversation. Asking the right questions and determining motivation can help you buy a property at a significant discount in today's market. So those are my 2 things. Have a long-term outlook and ask the right questions. And you will have
a few things, guys. Emma just dropped facts for investors, families, realtors. This was not just for investors. This was for everyone. She just gave you the pathway from start to finish. And realtors, if you're watching, she just gave you advice on how to get your clients amazing deals. So thank you so much, Emma. I think the different outlook is exactly what everyone kind of needs right now. I'll have to take notes for mine. But thanks so much, Emma. That was amazing. Where can they find you if they want to reach out to you?
You can reach me at Pace of Base on Instagram, or again, if you want to get on either of those lists, the link is in the description below to either get the most affordable properties in Toronto or get on our investor list.
Amazing. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning into the Canadian Real Estate Channel. My name's Kayla Smith. I'm on Instagram, Agent Kayla S, and all my information's below. Thanks so much, and see you next time.
See you guys.